Hi, everybody. It's Donna Reed, and I'm back in the Cactus Lounge for the first time in a very long time. Most of you know that I traveled in Up with People in 1976, Cast A. And this morning we have a group here who I met in air quotes, through going to an alumni communications meeting not too long ago. And I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves and tell when you first traveled and Up with People and maybe where you live right now. So Karen Lyons, you're my top left.
Good morning, Donna. Thanks for having me. My name is Karen Lyons, and I traveled as a cast member in 84C. I was a New Englander at the time, but this morning I am zooming in from California, San Francisco Bay Area, where I've lived for the last 28 years.
Well, right all the way across the country. Awesome.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and Karen, tell me how you pronounce your last name.
Vitkovich.
Savitkovich.
Perfect.
That's a
Yeah,
mouthful.
it is. Yeah. Yeah. So hello, everybody. I'm Karen Svitkovich. Used to be Karen Baker, and I traveled in 84B, and I'm talking to you today from Boston, Massachusetts.
Welcome. And Brad.
Hi, Donna. Good to see you again.
Yep.
I'm Brad Bungham. I was a student in E82 and then spent most of the 80s on staff and then again in Europe from 2015 to 2020. I've lived in Copenhagen, Denmark for 35 years, and I'm calling in from Iowa today,
Wow.
where I grew
So
up.
so that's a whole lot. What did you do for staff? Did you have a whole bunch of different jobs or
Yeah, I
yeah.
did. I drove truck and did lighting my first year. I was education manager, assistant cast manager, operations manager, cast manager, and then
Wow.
I was director of Europe from 2015 to 2020 after a
Wow.
25-year break.
So you might be one, not the two ladies. I did costumes for 78E and then 80, 81, and 82
Oh,
in Tucson. That was my summer job, while I was here.
oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah. I anyway,
that's a big job.
there's a whole lot of you can write a book about the ridiculous things that happen with costumes. And I'm
We
sure you all
we
know.
probably don't want to know.
Yeah, exactly. The Paul
We had to
Hardy,
wear them.
the rest of the story, especially those men's double knit snap crotch things back in the day. So, uh,
I remember.
yeah. So,
Still
everybody,
suffering.
you're here today because you put together a global impact program. And when I had heard about it, had no idea really what was involved. And you specifically have been helping in Kosovo and Albania. And what I found out during that time in that conversation is that this wasn't the first time. This has been going on a while. So, who do you think is best to address maybe how this started or how long you've been doing it?
I think probably Brad is the best. He has the most history in
Okay.
terms of what's been happening with Up with People and Kosovo and Albania.
All right, Brad, why don't you tell us how this all got going? How long you've been doing it?
I've been doing it since 2015, but it had nothing to do with Up with People back
Okay.
then. I started as director of Europe in 2015, and Paul Whitaker at the time was training me, I guess you could say. And he said, "You need to get to know Paul Delaney."
Mm.
I said, "I know the name, but I've never met him." And he said, "Well, He's bringing his a group of his donors from his nonprofit New Day Impact to Albania and Kosovo in couple months or whatever." I said, "Well, hey, I'd love to go." So he asked Paul, and Paul said, "Of course. I've heard Brad Bungham's name as well." So I went with Paul Whitaker on that first trip in 2015, and one thing led to another, and I think I've probably been there 10, 12 times now over the years, and then finally Paul wanted to bring a group of Up with People, and of course I did too. So we worked on that, and I think we were there in 2018 with the cast. We spent 2 weeks, the final 2 weeks of the year, and it was, I think I can say with confidence, the highlight of the cast year.
Was that in Albania or Kosovo?
It was in Kosovo only. Yeah,
Okay.
we weren't able to find sponsorships in Albania, but we had a really good team in Jakova, Kosovo, which is where we spent most of our time, the three of us, plus Paul and Dominic. in this past trip. So um, yeah, only Kosovo at the time. And over the years between 2015 and 2018, and even leading up to 2020, although COVID got in the way of our final trip the night before we were supposed to leave,
Oh my.
I just kept going with Paul because we were planning a return trip, um, not knowing COVID was going to shut the world down. And the other reason I kept going is having nothing to do with Up with People was the fact that from that initial trip, I was just blown away by the need in that part of Europe. And as I said, I've lived in Denmark for 35 years and, consistently top three in standard of living in the world and so on and so forth. And I've been to Croatia a number of times, both for work and family vacation. And I saw the effects of the Balkan War there, but I had no idea how much worse it was just down the road in Kosovo and Albania. And,
Wow.
we could drive to northern Croatia in probably 16, 17 hours. So to get down to Kosovo and Albania would have been another 3 or 4. And I said to myself, I said, this is just wrong. It's a 20-hour drive. It's like driving from Iowa to Denver, and you can do it, but it's like a different world, a totally different world. And
Interesting.
of course, there's money there, but there's also generally an incredible amount of poor people, and the after effects of the war are still quite visible. And New Day Impact's mission really is to help people, and they do it by building homes and community centers and churches and putting roofs on and fixing up rooms. And it's largely construction based, remodeling based, building based support that they give. They give money to certain causes as well. But so I was just, in a way, it's modeled after Up with People because Paul's an alum from
I'm
86.
pretty sure I have an interview with Paul recorded somewhere in these 60 interviews.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do. Yeah. And we tried to get him to join today, but I think he's just incredibly busy. So he's done an amazing job. He's a great leader. He's a great fundraiser. And he really, really cares about the individuals down there and the families that New Day Impact supports. So I wanted to be a part of that. And as our friendship grew, he wanted me to be there as well because it's typically 100% Dutch. So he wanted a American Dane or Danish American or whatever to go to mayor's meetings and
That's
stuff
awesome.
like that, add a little diversity. So that's kind of my background, and I'll continue to go, although I hadn't been there since 2019, as I said, because of COVID.
Yeah.
But
all right, so I'm gonna pop over to Karen Svitkovic. Karen, when did you get involved? And
So I got involved a little over 2 years ago. So at the time, I had just taken on a new Up with People International Alumni Association board position for global impact. So this was a new role, and the goal was to plan volunteer and learning trips that alumni could do together. And so Brad and I had been colleagues for many years, and he suggested that I connect with Paul DeLange and learn more about Kosovo and Albania. So I did. And then in October of 2023, I went on the trip by myself with the Dutch entrepreneurs that he was bringing there. And like Brad, I was really touched by the work they were doing, the impact that they were making, which seemed really systemic to me. I could really see that they were partnering with local nonprofits and didn't have this kind of savior mentality, but really a kind of long-term mentality in terms of the work they wanted to do. And so after experiencing it myself, I made the decision to have us try to organize more alumni to go as a part of the work that New Day Impact was doing.
That's awesome. All right. And then Karen Lyons, I understand, and I think your story of how you got involved is pretty fascinating. So share that.
Sure. So this year was my reunion year in Ireland. And when I was looking at my options for what I would do for activities um, during my stay, there was this option for a special study group through oh my gosh, I just forgot the name. I get it confused with New Day Impact, but
Your global
it's
impact. Yeah.
Global Impact.
Yeah.
There was an opportunity to go to Belfast with a smaller group of 15 for 4 days for a peace study. And I'd always been really interested in Belfast and Northern Ireland and the Troubles. And I thought it was a unique opportunity. So I got to know Karen and I signed up and I convinced two other cast members to go. And it was a great experience. And then during that time, Karen promoted this Kosovo and Albania trip. And I thought, whenever would I get that opportunity again to go to a place that I wouldn't pick for travel or vacation, but it was going to be something that would be unique, that frankly was a lot like Up With People and the important work that could be done um, from alumni and in the community service aspect. So I trusted Karen and I signed up and I got home from Ireland and then got ready for another trip to Kosovo and Albania.
So there's a couple of things here that I want to interject for whoever listens to this. And one of those is that there was all this discussion about, oh, we're going to be in Ireland for a reunion, and what is that like? And of course, the Europeans were happy, and then Americans are like, man, it's so far, and blah blah blah. And so I think the story is interesting because the smaller groups, it really worked. There was great success at the reunion this summer, and my 50th will be 2026. And so I am encouraging my cast to go, but also the connections that you made there, because you said in the other group that if you hadn't met them, you're not sure you would have made the decision to do this. And
I know I wouldn't have actually,
yeah,
just because it just it didn't sound so defined and I didn't understand, and I
yeah,
have to say, I trusted Karen.
yeah.
I got to know her and I trusted her and believed in that I knew it was going to be a different experience.
And I think that for me, because I remember when it was first announced, I actually found an email in my Up With People file, corresponding probably with you, Karen, about it. And I always think, oh, they probably won't do it if they don't get a certain number of people. So so to have you guys come on and learn the rest of the story about it was super interesting for me to know that, okay, maybe only 3 of you are Up With People alumni, and and that's fine because there already is this other core group that's been coming, from other places. So I want to give props to the IAA for that reunion and for those opportunities that kind of led to this, this little group here. Um, Brad, I want to go back to you. Well, actually, any of you. So one of the other things that came up in when you were talking to that, what was that group called? I don't know, the Alumni Communications. It was like an update thing. You talked about how hard it was. Somebody talked about how hard it was in Kosovo, whether to get people to trust you or to get services or something. I can't remember that whole
It was
story.
Paul DeLange,
It
I
was
believe.
Paul that said
Karen,
that.
do you remember? I think he was talking about maybe getting permits or getting things accomplished initially.
Okay.
Um, and if Karen or Brad could expand on that, I think. Although
That's what I remember
he
hearing.
certainly seemed to be friends with everybody there.
He's gained that trust, but I think it speaks to that you really need to build the trust and the sort of local ownership for projects like this to really be successful. And that's one of the things that I think Paul and New Day Impact are especially good at is, I went 2 years in a row, as I said, and I saw the same people working for NGOs that were really seeing the difference that had happened even just in 12 months. But I'm sure that initially on the ground for Paul and his and his organization to be able to really gain the trust of local people. It took a while, but he's really succeeded in doing that. But I don't know, Dad, you probably know more than I do what that took.
Well, you're you're right. He didn't just go down there and say, "I want to help Kosovars and Albanians." Um, it's a long story, but I'll try to make it short. Where it got kicked off was he took his son. He was a chaperone for his son's soccer team in Albania, and they went down there and played a group of Albanian boys. And Paul came home, reacted a little bit like I did after my first trip, said to his wife, "I want to do something for these people." And she said, "Well, do it then. Don't talk about it, do it." So he started building relationships, and they have an incredible network down there. So, and he's been going there. I don't know if he already had the foundation or if he started it at that point, but I was at the 10-year anniversary of New Day Impact. I think it was in 2019, so that's 5 years ago. So they're 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 pushing 25 years down there.
Wow.
And the one main difference between Up with People and New Day Impact is that they are a Christian organization and they don't hide that, but they don't discriminate, so to say.
They can't say you can't
help,
come if you're not a Christian.
or you don't get help for a new home or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And Kosovo's what, 98% Muslim, and so is Albania. So they help everybody. They help people. And but a lot of their connections down there are through the churches and Hope for Albania and other nonprofit organizations that they've teamed up with. And then they've just gotten to know tons of people. And when Karen was talking, I was going to add on, but I'll do it now. Even Karen having gone there for the second time and me having gone there, like I said, 10 or 12 times, you get to know the families that they've helped. I've seen kids grow up and go off to college and lives turned around, fathers who were totally dejected. It's a very man-dominated society down there. And from people who lived in the mountains during the war, came back home, their homes were gone. New Day Impact has built homes for a lot of those families. And to see the look on the man's face, the husband's face, when he has something of his own and he has a garden that he planted himself. And I mean, they were living in what we called the barracks. And it was awful. I mean, awful, awful, awful. You can't imagine how bad it was. It was, for those that have been to Johannesburg or Mexico City and seen the worst of the worst, it was like that. And over the years, they've just continued to build their relationships. They brought in new people, introduced them to people like Karen, had outsiders come in, outsiders meaning non-Dutch, non-NDI, New Day Impact people. And they also bring a youth group down there once or twice a year. So it's teenagers. And that's where it's really modeled after Up with People. They do music and dance and go into schools and daycare centers and
nice.
Really make an impact. So I think too, and I neglected to say it, but I'm repeating myself now, but one of the big joys for me has been, and I think for Karen, even having gone there one time, is seeing the families that you saw last time, or 9 years ago in my case.
Very true.
Seeing the kids grow up and seeing the families thriving. And
so with that, I wanna ask then, so in my brain, there's like this Habitat for Humanity thing. Like I think about the people that go to Mexico and build a house, right? So when you went there, and any of you could answer this, did you have a preconceived notion about what it would be like and what you would do? So Brad said you the first time you just went and you were like, did you think, oh, I'm going to go put a roof on a house? Like what did you guys think you were going to do when you got there?
Karen Lyons might be good to.
Yeah. Because I actually think one of the things that we didn't do as well as I hope to do this in the future years is it was difficult for us to explain to people exactly what it would be like. And that's one of the reasons I'm really happy about this, this recording with you, Donna. So I think, Karen Lyons, what did you think you would be doing? I know we talked about a potential itinerary, but what was in your head?
You know something, people ask me what I was going to do, and I say, I'm not quite sure. And it comes back to, again, that trust that I had in Karen because of my Belfast trip. I didn't know what that was going to be like either. But, Brad's mentioned a couple times modeled after Up With People. And where I say trust, I knew there would be community connection that I wouldn't have gotten the chance to experience had I gone on a normal trip on my own, and that I would get to interact with people who lived in poverty. I knew that, and and be invited into their homes. I think that's a real privilege that I don't take lightly, or I don't think anybody there did either. It wasn't like we have something that you don't in terms of wealth. It was more it was more of a privilege to be invited into their homes to say, I'd say some of this trip was an assessment of what would be needed, and for people to tell you their story, their hardship stories of why they were living like they were living, of conditions that, it wasn't their fault. And so it was a very human experience that I just knew I had an inkling of that I would get, and to appreciate the culture. I had no idea about, of course, I heard about the war in Kosovo,
Right.
but I will never forget the morning that we went to a memorial where 300 some people were buried, um, because they were all killed on the same day in this village in Kosovo. And the gentleman who told the story, his family was killed as a young boy, and how he's changed and brought community together. And New Day Impact built his house where we had a luncheon after a celebration after something so somber. Um, that was a beautiful experience, and it made me want to come home and get involved here at home.
Yeah,
Um, so
that's
I
so
I think
cool.
I might have gone a little around your question.
No, I I think that one of the things that in any of these interviews, when I talk with people about what affected them, what they learned, it could be the song. I mean, immediately I started thinking of One to One Will Change the World, because you were 5 or 6 people that went, and they, and who's changing the world and how are we changing it? And you're doing it one place, one life, one family at a time, right? It isn't like and I had asked earlier if you guys knew Karin Nyquist, and she's in Sweden, and she's an architect, and her father was a globally known architect who helped bring fresh water to Bhutan and things like that, by building and stuff. And I'm like, she would be really good to connect with you,
Mm, yeah.
for this, because the skill sets that we have as alumni are fascinating, and we're all impacted in different ways, right? I don't think that the majority of Americans have ever seen anything like what people in other parts of the world have. Brad, you mentioned Mexico City. I remember being there for 6 weeks and stuff like that. And we really, for the most part, can't relate. It doesn't mean that we don't have some devastation and that hurricanes and things don't change the world, change our lives. But thus far, it hasn't been because of a war in our soil since the Civil War, right? We
Mhm.
we haven't had that. Um, do you go at the same time? Does this happen like kind of at the same time every year, or how is that worked?
Well, Paul, he organizes a number of trips over the course of the year for various groups and various ages. But I think we'll continue to target the October timeframe for the Kosovo and Albania trips, where we invite Up With People. We're in the process right now of starting to think about the planning for next year and for future years. Um, and we are trying to coordinate as well with Alumni Week. So Alumni Week will be in July instead of August next year. So the
Right.
time period between Alumni Week will be a little bit longer, and I think that will be helpful.
Yeah.
So there's that piece as well. So it's not in stone, but my anticipation is that it'll likely be in October again next year.
Okay. I'm going to throw something out here and it's going to sound like a commercial. There is a Keller Williams presence in Albania, not in Kosovo, but in Albania. And we have a day of giving the Thursday in May closest to the 12th because of our original service person's birthday. And they always are looking for ways to participate. And it happens all over the world in all of our offices.
Hmm.
And it might be kind of interesting to connect someone with
Wonderful.
that office to see, and it would be in May, but they might be interested in learning about, oh my God, I'm doing the same thing. I'm reading Global Impact, the other, you know, to see whether any of the realtors there might partner with
Yeah, that's
some
a
of
wonderful idea, Donna. We'd really,
what you're doing.
welcome any ideas around partnership. I think the more people we can get involved, of course, the more impact we can make, as
Are
well
you
as
in Tirana? Is that what's the capital there? Did I say that right? Yeah.
Yep.
in Albania, we're flying into Tirana,
Okay.
and this year, how we organized it is there's a direct flight from Amsterdam to Tirana.
Okay.
So people could take that as a group or could meet us directly there. And so we're flying in and out of Tirana.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
Jakova. We've flown in and out of Jakova as well. One time we flew in and out of I can never pronounce it, even though I've been there. Thessalonia in Greece. Um,
Thessalonica? Thessalonia.
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah, thank you.
That place. Yeah.
I'm not as global as I thought I was.
Been a lot of places, seen a lot of people. So
Yeah.
we,
Well, for the most part, we fly into Tirana, we fly into Jacoba, and in Tirana, because it's a fairly large city, most of the work that New Day Impact does, not all of it, because some of the churches they built have been in Jacoba, for example, community centers in Jacoba. But the most of the work they do is in the smaller villages around there where the real poverty is, and also with the Roma communities. Some of which are in the cities and some of which are on the outskirts.
Okay. Okay. So we have less than 10 minutes. And I'm going to ask you a couple of things. And one of those is that when I post this, I'll probably make it live pretty quickly because it's been a long time since I've done some interviews. I'm going to ask you if you'll share it in your cast pages, your Facebook pages, however, it goes to the alumni page. But as you well know, not a lot of people don't know that I've been doing this for a couple of years, right? It's truly somebody connecting to someone else and finding that out. Beyond what you're doing there, is there an experience that while you were in Up with People that you think would have led you to being like, oh yeah, we need to do this? Did you do a service while you were in Up with People that you think made you go, I need to do this for people in the future? Anybody have a specific thing that?
I think for me, when I traveled and Up with People, I'm not a singer or a dancer. I think I had 2 or 3 MC roles and I went on PR. For me, what really touched me and what really made my year was the service projects. I really felt like that's where I grew the most personally, and that's where I felt the best about my involvement. So for me, knowing that groups of alumni wanted to continue that in their kind of adult post Up with People life, we got that feedback from the survey that went out in 2018 and 2019. Made me really motivated because I thought, wow, there's thousands of alumni in Up with People. And if we can mobilize even just a small percentage of them to
Right.
do good work together in the world, it's
Mhm.
like a ripple effect. And so that for me is what motivated me to be a part of Global Impact with the IIA, and also what motivated me to go to Kosovo and Albania.
Nice. Nice. Um, my son traveled in 2013, and when they were volunteering in Florida, I don't know if any of you have kids that traveled in the 2000s. They have a week in a city, right? And unlike the 2 days, go, 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 go. Somewhere in Florida, they were taking all the pieces of soap that people leave in dishes, and one of the nonprofits mushed them all together and created new bars of soap for the homeless. And
Wonderful.
and I remember him talking about that. I'm like, we throw so much away, right?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So if someone wanted to find out more about this for the future, Karen, would they email you or what?
They certainly could email me. They could go onto the IAA website, and under opportunities is the description of and kind of sample agenda of what we did this past year.
Okay.
And that's where we'll be putting the registration
Okay.
for next year. But we'll also try to, and we did this year as well, try to have people post it in their cast groups.
Oh, yeah.
And talk about it during the connector meetings that happen monthly.
I think that today's world has so many ways to connect that sometimes I feel like, oh, I have to do a message. Oh, I have to do a Facebook. Oh, I have to do a WhatsApp. Oh, I have to text somebody privately because they never look at any of that, I think so. Whereas back in the day, there was like one way to find out, and you just found out.
Yeah.
So I really think it's something that we need to continue to promote. Any last words from anybody? We've got about 3.5 minutes.
I think what you're doing, Donna, and I've thought about it since you interviewed me back in 2015 when I came on in Europe. And honestly, even myself, I forget about the fact that you're doing this, and I don't know where to find you. Now I do. I just feel like you're a hidden gem within the alumni world, and we got to figure out a way to make people aware of the fact that you're doing these things on a somewhat regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I was doing a couple a month for a while, and then my world got crazy, but I really want, and I need to meet new people. I need to, like, I was in 76. I wasn't traveling in the 80s. And it's like, who knows, who knows, who knows who. And so if you have anyone else that you think that would be a great person to interview, let me know, because our stories are vast. And I think for 23,000 alumni, there's been a lot of impact in the world.
Well, I would stay on gently, and I'll help you. Karen and Karen can help you as well. I would stay on Paul and Dominic.
Okay.
Dominic only traveled 1 year, but he knows a lot of people.
Okay.
And he's a wonderful guy, typical Irishman. And Paul, obviously, he was on staff for, I don't know, 3-4 years, mainly in Europe, but he knows a ton of people as well. So stay on them, and if you get them one-on-one or together or whatever.
And you guys, if you get a chance, go listen to some of the first ones I did from like the early 70s, because that group of like 71 and stuff, half of Yuma traveled like in the early 70s. And I mean, some were on the covers of magazines based on health, things that they discovered. It's amazing to me. We really are our own city. That we probably have at least one of everybody in the alumni world. So I'm gonna end this. Thank you, you guys, for making this work
so much. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, we'll get it out there. Share it with your groups, in your groups. And Brad, I think you sent me Dominic's email, so I'll try to follow up with him too. So, all right, have a great rest of the day, and then I'll message you in the WhatsApp group when I make it live. Okay.
Thank you, Donna.
Thanks, Donna.
All right.
Bye. Bye, Brad. Bye, Karen.